Hello everyone, this is Magic with Class, and I was just going through one of my binders, and I wanted to show you some commander cards that I put aside in this binder. So if you see a legendary creature, some interesting tech, please let me know in the comments. Fire Song and Sunspeaker was actually the first unique buy a box promo. It was rare, unlike the other ones like Nexus of Fate, which were considered mythics. They were printed with the mythic symbol. Now, Firesong and Sunspeaker actually would make an interesting commander. I've never actually made it. However, giving all your burn spells lifelink is kind of interesting. And when those burn spells gain you life, this does an additional 3 damage to a creature or a player. So if you are interested in me making a possible commander deck around Firesong and Sunspeaker, I have been thinking about it for a little while now. Let me know in the comments. And right next to it would be a card that you could run in the Firesong and Sunspeaker deck, Beacon of Immortality. Although this one is not in the best condition. Angel of Grace, just a mythic from one of the Ravnica sets. One of the zombie gods from War of the Spark. Another mythic in the finale cycle. And here's the white one as well. Another life gain card. There's Crusade, which I think went up in value actually. This is another commander that I'm interested in building. Prime Speaker Vanifar. I'm actually putting aside some pretty strong green and blue cards right now to use with this guy as a, or this girl as a commander. Prime Speaker Vanifar is interesting in the story because she believes in modifying her own body and the bodies of others, which not everyone in the Simic actually believe in. Some of them believe in staying true to their own bodies, but as you can tell from its creature type, where it's an elf, ooze, wizard, she is willing to modify her body in all sorts of ways. I actually didn't realize this was an ooze. It's kind of a weird combination, elf, ooze, and even wizard doesn't really fit. Not many elves are actually wizards. A lot of elves, if they have a magic class, it would be druid. So basically, a commander built around her would use a lot of untap effects because you would sacrifice a creature, bring in another creature that would let you untap Prime Speaker Vanifar and continue to do it because the tap ability does not require any mana. Here's another War of the Spark card. No, I'm sorry, this is not from War of the Spark. It's from one of the Ravnica sets. Everyone thinks this Planeswalker is not particularly good. And right now I think it's very undervalued. Do not underestimate a 3 mana Planeswalker. So usually if I can find this card for like 50 cents or $1, I usually pick it up. It's always good to have like a whole bunch of extra Planeswalkers in your collection. So some of the cards I actually already pulled out to make some decks. But you're gonna see like a lot of mana rocks. I put a lot of my mana producing cards that cost like 2 mana, like Boral Signet right there. I actually put them in this book. Path of Discovery is a pretty good card in Commander as well. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, it explores. So basically, if you reveal a land, you can put that into your hand. If it's not a land, you put a +1/+1 counter. This is actually pretty good in green and white token decks. If you can play a card that will put a lot of tokens onto the battlefield at the same time, Path of Discovery will trigger for each of the tokens that you put on the battlefield, which is pretty interesting. I think it's not bad in elves, like an elf command deck as well. Here's another mythic from one of the Ravnica sets. Another one, another two actually. Ravager Worm and Dream Eater. Pretty much bulk. Mythics. Dream Eater is actually pretty good in a deck that seeks to flicker. And here's Niv Mizzet. And at one point, this card was absolute bulk. I actually have a few copies of Niv Mizzet Reborn because I always thought that there was something there. At the very least, it's an interesting card. It's a dragon. It's a 5-color legend. So now it actually sees competitive play in what is it called? Miz to Light decks. I think a commander around this card would also be very interesting, but I've actually seen people get the ability and get absolutely no cards. I've never seen anyone get the full 10 cards. But this card strongly encourages you to build a deck where you use almost every 2-color guild card. So that's interesting, and that really represents Ravnica. Here's some more 2-mana ramp cards. The Talisman cycle, very strong. I think it's getting more and more expensive as people realize how competitive these cards are in Commander. This one's Talisman of Indulgence and Talisman of Unity. I would say that in the Talisman cycle, the ones that are non-green are actually the better ones. Because green has a lot of different ways to ramp. Talisman of Impulse. And I actually had all of the Talisman cards here. And I think I've been putting them into decks. Same thing with the Signet cards, which are also rising in value. Here's Cecilina Signet. Here's Shrostani, another legendary creature that would make a pretty good commander. And Thrawn Turbine. Not a rare, but its value keeps going up. It's a 1-mana card that can give you 2 colorless mana every single turn, so that's not to be underestimated. But you can only use it for abilities, really. Simmet Signet. This is Orzhov Signet. Orzhov Signet is actually pretty good. Any black-white deck I use will usually run Orzhov Signet. Like I said, I don't always run the green Signets. Depends on the particular deck. Here's Rakdos Signet, same thing. In a red-black deck, I will almost always run at least one. Well, in Commander, you can only run one. But I usually run Rakdos Signet. Here's a card. I don't know why I pulled this to the side, but it does have an interesting effect. Each creature you control gains pay 1, regenerate this creature. It's a weird ability. Seal of Primordium. Here's some more Signets. Golgari. Here's the disc. Interesting removal option in decks that don't have great removal options, especially a mono black or a mono red deck that struggles with being able to destroy artifacts or enchantments. I have a few. I put 1 copy in the deck, it looks like. Everflowing Chalice, another 2-mana, potentially mana ramp card. You can put, the more mana you put into it, the more mana it will produce. So you can actually cast it for 0, but it essentially does nothing if you cast it for 0. So you really want to cast it for at least 2. Prismatic Lantern, another 2-mana ramp card. And all these 2-mana ramp cards are great in Commander. This one produces colorless though, so you have to be careful how many sources you put in your deck that can only produce colorless mana. More Growth Signet, another Ravager Worm, Basilisk Monolith. This mana ramp card costs 3, but it can also add 3 to your mana pool. If you have a lot of ways to untap cards, for example, I just showed you a commander that would use a lot of untap effects, I might run this. Here's another Niv Mizzet. I told you I had like a few of them. Yeah, some repetition in the ramp spells. Star Compass. This comes into play tapped. However, it does produce colored mana if your opponent has colored mana. Bottomless Pit, interesting in the discard deck. Hedron Archive, I used to like this card because from 4 mana it produces 2 colorless mana, and in white or red decks that don't have a lot of draw options, this card can also be cashed in later in the game for draw 2. However, I think as they release more and more cards for Commander, this card is actually getting, weaker than it once was. There's a free sacrifice outlet. Just some random cards from Battle Bond. The Crowd Goes Wild is actually foil. Okay. Bezel Gatekeeper. Maybe not bad in a sacrifice deck. Unflinching Courage in a deck that revolves around auras. I think eventually we're going to see more of these Azra creature type cards, and Azra is like a half demon, half human. This card, Rushblade Commander, actually I think will go up slightly in value because warriors are in everyone's mind right now because of the party mechanic from Zendikar Rising, and this gives all warriors on you or your teammates team haste, which is a pretty good ability for warriors to have because they usually want to attack. Spell Snare, always a good card. Spectral Searchlight is interesting if you're playing teams again. Because... oh my. Sorry about that. Camera's going. Anyway, Spectral Searchlight is a good card if you're playing with teams because you can actually use the mana that it generates for your teammate. Genesis Chamber. It's a double-sided sword. Beast Within, always a classic. Great removal spell in green. One of the few green cards that can destroy creatures. This Fertilid is a decent ramp card. Greater Good. This Greater Good is actually foil. I actually opened a Battle Bond pack and this came in it. Excellent, excellent card. Greater Good. Oh, and here's a very popular commander that I have actually never built. She is mono red, but she has a 5-color ability, meaning that in the commander deck you could use all 5 colors with her. And I haven't checked, but this card must be going up a lot in value because they printed a whole bunch of warriors in Zendikar Rising, and I think we're going to continue to see that trend. I think in Kaldheim they're also going to print a decent number of warriors, it seems likely, as the Norse culture valued warriors. And she's one of the most competitive commanders out there. So if you have a deck list that you want to share that incorporates this commander, I will definitely give you some credit, and maybe I can build my own version of that deck. Stunning Reversal. Very interesting mythic from Battle Bond. And this was a new card from Battle Bond. If you would lose the game, you draw 7 cards, and you don't lose. Instead, your life total becomes 1. Of course, this exiles itself so that you don't continuously return it to your hand and use it over and over so that you can never lose. Imagine if they one day print a card that could return an instant or sorcery from exile. So far, I don't believe they have made a card like that. I think they've made a few that will return exile cards to your deck. But if they make one that returns to your hand, imagine all the Time Walk effects that exile themselves and this card in the same deck. That would be pretty interesting. Maybe in Commander Legends they'll print a legendary card that does that. Although Marrow has said over and over again how he hates cards that get other cards back from exile. He wants the exile zone to be permanently removed from the game zone. But also, he approves of it being a holding zone for cards like Banishing Light, so... Incarna Revenant. This was actually a very expensive card before it was reprinted in Battle Bond as a mythic, but I think it's one of the cheaper mythics in that set now. Still a great way to generate a huge amount of mana whenever you tap a swamp. It adds an additional black mana. And if you have nothing to use that black mana on, you can use it on the counter Ravnica itself to give it +1/+1 for each 1 mana that you use. And it's a 4/4 for 6. I honestly wish this card had flying. It looks like it should. Game plan. Another excellent card for the Warrior Tribal deck. Chain Lightning, which was a really cool reprint in Battle Bond. This card was getting kind of expensive. It's an uncommon in Battle Bond. Ooh. These are some bulkier rares from the Battle Bond set. These two are partner with cards. So Commander Legends is going to have partner. This has partner with, meaning the only card you compare it with is each other. But still, the flavor of these two cards is pretty good. So this is a human knight who actually uses the dragon as a means of transportation. So you can see the dragon under her in the art. And this is the dragon. You can see the human knight riding on top of the dragon, kind of in the background there. And it's interesting to have a commander deck that can use two different tribes in a unique way like this. The knight helps out your dragons, giving them all double strike, and the dragon gives all of your knights flying and haste. Ooh, that's pretty good. 2 abilities. Sky Shock Claim, pretty good card for Commander. I guess I must have put a lot of Battle Bond in here. Of course, Battle Bond's always going up in value. A lot of people didn't realize what a good set it was. This is interesting. Mono White Elf, not many of those. Nothing really to say except some of the partner with cards were not legendary. I wonder if, hold on. I have my light on. I wonder if I put it this way, you can actually see better. Yeah, I actually think that works. Okay, Perilous Vault. This is another very good card if you are playing a monocolored deck that has a hard time getting rid of certain permanent types like artifacts or enchantments. It's a colorless way to get rid of all of them. I have a few of these because I think they're pretty good in Commander, as is Collective Unconscious. Drawing a card for each creature you control, but I think at this point there are better versions of that effect. This is another card that can be used as Commander. It's actually a fairy. Blue, white, and green fairy. And it just takes control of a creature. And as long as this card remains tapped, you keep control of that creature. I guess this is good for some sort of, if your opponent is playing mill, this counters it very well. Oops, sorry about that, shakiness. Not bad, but she's outclassed by the green and white 1-mana hybrid card that produces tokens as well. This is an interesting dragon, giving you extra combat phases, and this guy has a couple of interesting combos. Everyone really liked this card when it was first spoiled, because it's an alternate win effect. It can be used as your commander, and I think I've seen 1 or 2 commander decks using this as like the win condition, but it's actually pretty hard to pull off. So if you have a very easy way to pull this off, maybe with clones or something, let me know. Also, cool creature type, Vampire Assassin. Everyone was saying how much they wish this was a rogue. Vampire Assassin rogue. Or just a Vampire rogue. One day Assassins will get their moment to shine. Anything else particularly interesting? We're just going through this book. This is actually pretty good in Spellslinger type decks. And this one's pretty good in Sacrifice decks. And again, this looks like just a bunch of common and uncommons from the latest Ravnica sets that just rotated out. Some of them are pretty decent in Commander. A lot of multicolor cards. Those are usually fairly powerful for their cost compared to other cards. I think we're reaching about the end. This is the Locket cycle, I guess. I wasn't too interested in the Locket cycle. I think 3 mana cards that only produce 1 mana, even if it's between 2 different colors, is just not good enough. And I'd rather play Hadron Archive, and even then, like I said, I don't even really play that much anymore. It's been outclassed. There's been better cards printed. The Lockets were good for limited, but they're not competitive at all. I mean, I guess same thing with the Guildgates. They're not particularly competitive. However, at the very least, they have Maze's End, which is an interesting card in win conditions. So at least there's some type of competitive use for these Guildgates. Although they just print these Guildgates just too much. Like, I must have 1 million of them. Nothing particularly good. Yeah, so I guess these are just some commons and uncommons from Ravnica towards the end. That's what it looks like. I don't see any more rares or mythics. Yep. So thank you guys. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments if this is something you would want me to do more of, where I just open up one of my random binders and show you just what cards are inside. Let me know. If you liked one or two of the legendary creatures that I've shown, and you would like me to do a Commander deck tech video, I can definitely do that as well. So, that being said, I want to thank you for all the support, and this is Magic with Class. I'm Jeremy Class, always reminding you to gather with class.